Hello, everyone, and welcome to Algorithms and AI, Artificial Intelligence, the Future of Communication. I'm Dr. Jessica Eyes, and this lecture is part of a short course. And let's briefly review the goals of the course, as always, which is to help you develop the agility to work intelligently in digital environments and to stay on the vanguard of communication innovation. In my last three lectures, we reviewed the foundations of algorithms, foundations of artificial intelligence, and then we took a broad look at AI's influence on communication. In today's lecture, we are going to drill down a little bit more into one particular area of communication, and that is media. So how does AI influence media? And how do we think this might evolve or change going forward? We won't focus too much on that about the future, but we will ask some questions that might help us shape our ideas of how we want the future to look. So we're going to, in this lecture, focus on two areas, social media and news media, which are two major forms of communication that have been heavily influenced by artificial intelligence. We will spend most of our time on social media, particularly news feed algorithms. Social media news feed algorithms are the most prominent example of artificial intelligence in media communication today. So let's start at the basics. A news feed, as most of us probably know, is a list of published content, right? So it is the primary feature of social media. It's the first thing you see when you open your social media site, and it is the lists of posts that unfold before you. Okay, we'll talk a lot about Facebook here. So let's start at Facebook. Facebook launched in 2004. It didn't even have a news feed until 2006. When it did get a news feed, everything appeared in reverse chronological order. You know what, let's jump off this PowerPoint for a second. We'll just talk straight here. So everything appeared in reverse chronological order. That meant that when you saw everyone's posts that you were friends with, starting with the most recent post and going backwards. So reverse chronological. So if someone posted something 1 second ago, you saw that first. Then the person who posted 2 minutes ago, then the person who posted 3 minutes ago, and so on and so forth. And your newsfeed would update with everyone's most recent post. So basically, you saw every single person's post that you were friends with in the order that they appeared in time, starting with the most recent. On its face, this seems super reasonable, right? You chose to be friends with these people, and so you're seeing all their posts in the order in which they appear. However, reverse chronological order is no more. In 2007, Facebook premiered the like button, right? The like button. But it wasn't until more or less 2009 that Facebook debuted what we would consider to be the algorithm, the newsfeed algorithm that we know today that sorts our news feeds for us. We sort of know this algorithm because I say sort of, because A, we don't actually know it at all because it is completely proprietary to Facebook. That means that Facebook owns that code and does not share it, right? And then B, we only sort of know this algorithm because it's changing all the time based on decisions that programmers at Facebook are making. Because remember, AI does not control itself. It is controlled by programmers. So the newsfeed algorithm put a hard stop to reverse chronological order in the newsfeed as we know it. So what does this mean? It means that you do not see all the posts of your friends, families, and other interests as they post in real time. You see posts that are sorted according to an algorithm deployed by Facebook. All right. So what is this newsfeed algorithm? We want to demystify things here, okay? Before we go a little bit further, I'd just like to say thank you to Will Oremus for his Slate article, Who Controls Your Facebook Feed? Not all my information is drawn from there, but a lot of really great information comes from that article. So let's talk about this algorithm, okay? Even before the like button appeared, Facebook engineers were trying to find a way to filter posts based on interest, because otherwise they believed that people would be overwhelmed with hundreds of updates every day. And this is a really interesting ethical question that we should ask ourselves. We'll get into this a little more later, but let's just plant the seed in our heads right now. So if we choose to be friends with someone on a social media outlet, if we choose to be friends with hundreds of people on a social media outlet, is it our choice to be overwhelmed with hundreds of updates and to see everything everyone posts? Or is it okay for someone else, a group of programmers, to decide how we manage our friends? But more on that later. So the algorithm that controls content on people's news feeds is considered artificial intelligence. Based on what we've reviewed earlier, we know that artificial intelligence can be designed as an algorithm that processes massive amounts of data very quickly and can process from multiple data inputs. However, we also know, which I like to emphasize regularly, that algorithms that are considered artificial intelligence are written by human beings, so computer programmers or engineers, who make decisions, usually with the support of a team, about what the algorithms should do. So even before the like button, Facebook had a crude algorithm to filter newsfeed items based on how likely they were to be of interest. And since they had no real way to measure that, because they didn't have the like button yet, the engineers just made assumptions based on their own intuition. In other words, they guessed. So if it was in your newsfeed, it might be based on how recent it was and how many of your friends mentioned it, for instance. Now, as we proceed in our discussion, I think it's very important to talk about what is the point of newsfeed algorithms. So why is Facebook so concerned about this? And why other social media sites are so concerned about this. The point of a newsfeed algorithm is to increase the amount of time people spend on the site, okay? This is the entire purpose of a newsfeed algorithm. Facebook and other social media sites are businesses. They want to retain customers in order to make a profit. So the more time you spend on their site, the more time you spend scrolling through the newsfeed, the more advertisements you see, and the more advertisements you potentially click on. This, in turn, influences the amount of money or profit that a company or Facebook makes. And this is why, ultimately, Facebook engineers are so interested in showing you content that they think is interesting to you or that makes you feel good, because that will keep you on the website longer. So with the introduction of the like button on Facebook, Facebook had a new way of figuring out what was of interest to each user. And users didn't really realize what they were doing. basically by clicking like, you have been sort of enlisted by Facebook to help modify the algorithm to personalize your own newsfeed. So how does this algorithm work? What is going on behind the scenes, inside the program? Remember, we talked about how data gets input into an algorithm, right? You give data points. Well, you don't give, it's collected, right? Data points are collected about you to Facebook or from Facebook as a user. So these data points can be what you like, how long you spend reading something you clicked on, what you commented on, what you post. All of these things become data points about you. This data comprises some sort of a digital profile or a digital fingerprint, so to speak. These data points are then input into the algorithm that processes these massive amounts of data according to instructions and standards designed by Facebook programmers. Then it selects future content for you to see based on these data points. The goal is to keep you engaged and on the website. So the programmers design the algorithm to select the content that, based on your past engagement, will be what they hope is of continued interest to you. This is considered artificial intelligence because it's processing incredibly massive amounts of data. Facebook has well over 1 billion users. And these algorithms produce output that determines what posts you will see next based on standards put in place by its engineers. Okay, so let's look a little bit more closely here at the slide that's on the screen. We'll try to break it down a little bit. So let's start with the word inventory. So the inventory comprises, we're breaking down the algorithm as much as we can based on the little that we know about it. So that the inventory comprises all the posts in a queue that are yet to be seen by the end user. So these are all the potential posts that you could see based on all of your friends or all of your connections. These posts can include promotional content as well, posts from pages you follow, as well as content from friends. So thousands of posts are competing with each other to sort of rise in the eyes of the algorithm, okay? And at the end, only a few hundred of these posts will actually show up in your newsfeed. Okay, so that's the inventory, which are all the posts that you could potentially see. Okay, next is the signals. So this stage is where they look at the inventory and they make considerations about the content, right? So they have their inventory and now they're looking at the signals within their inventory, okay? So each post is analyzed based on available data, and it can be analyzed according to any of the following, right? So number of likes, the type of post, is it a video, is it an image, the owner of the post, the time and day of the post, the speed of the internet connection, the type of device that's being used, right? Are you on your phone or on your computer? The time that has been spent on that post, the top 50 interactions with that post, the video engagement. So did other people interacting with that post turn on the audio? Did they change it to full screen? So these are all different signals that are generated from users. And then they're given weight. Okay. So if a post has been shared many times, it has a higher weight. Okay. Content from family and friends usually has a higher weight. Okay. All right. So now we move into predictions. Okay. So we have our inventory, right? of all the posts possible. And then we have the signals that are being analyzed from those posts, and now into the prediction phase. So the algorithm attempts to make predictions based on information available to determine what the users prefer to see in their newsfeed, or what they might hide. Okay, so they're basically trying to, at this point, predict what content will be most interesting and engaging to you based on these signals. And they do this based on previous data points they've gathered from you, and also other like popularity of the post itself. So for example, a post from a friend that received a comment from a user on a similar post in the past will likely be predicted to interest the user over content from a page that received a like. Okay. So if a video is seen to be receiving higher engagement over written things, then those posts would be predicted to be preferred. And then the last stage is that these predicted posts, along with the weights, arrive at a relevancy score. So the posts are then ordered based on this score in descending order. Okay, so based on the score that these posts are given from the signals and from the predictions, they get a score. All of these are in the inventory, all these potential posts in the inventory. Okay, and based on this score, then they appear in this order, in descending order from the highest score down. Okay, this is a ranking approach. Actually, let's jump back here. Take a moment and talk a little bit. So this has a lot of implications for communication. It has not only changed the way we receive information, but it also changes the way we communicate. So the concept of something going viral was not something that really evolved until, well, I say recently, and why recently in the last 20 years. But what these algorithms started to do, well, I'm using anthropomorphizing language, I'm sorry. The algorithms didn't decide to do anything. The engineers designed them to do things. So the algorithms identify popular posts and make them go viral. And in this way, people started to change the way they wrote posts and the way they worded things in order to get them to go viral. So they would change their language. So maybe whereas before they would have used a subtler language or a more nuanced language, maybe they started to use like stronger words or more outrageous words, or to post more outrageous content, because that would get more likes and it would get more engagement, and this would boost their posts. So Facebook did notice that this was happening, and they did try to make some changes by deciding that their ultimate goal would be to show people posts that really matter. Well, but what does that mean? So they did this not by asking everyone what they wanted, but they did ask some people. So test groups of people were asked to rank what stories they did and did not want to see. This was a push to humanize the news feeds inputs and outputs. Today, the process of developing and changing Facebook's newsfeed algorithm is so complex that there can actually be multiple versions of the Facebook newsfeed algorithm running all over the world at different times. So the newsfeed algorithm that you are experiencing with Facebook right now might not be the same as somebody else in a different country or a different test group. They test it on different groups to measure long-term outcomes that they might not have been able to predict. And many, many people are involved in the development of these algorithms. Today, Facebook is attempting to make its platform more transparent for users, give people more, in some sense, direct control over what they see. But it does make you wonder, how does that work when most people have a low digital literacy? So to question the efficacy of that. But let's pop over, we'll look at a different, we've been talking a lot about Facebook, but let's pop over to Instagram. Okay, jump over. Okay. So Instagram used to run on a reverse chronological newsfeed. They did this up until 2016. So at that time, every individual person's feed on the platform became organized according to algorithms rules. So Instagram is no longer a reverse chronological feed as of 2016. And so in terms of Instagram, like what are some of the factors that the engineers have decided that the algorithm should look for, right? So there's three kind of primary ranking signals. One is relationship. So the algorithm will bump up posts from accounts that a user already interacts with. So if you're already interacting with that account, they will show you more posts from that account. So people you have interacted with, you will end up interacting with more and more. And people you don't interact with as much, you will end up interacting with less and less. Another is interest. So if you've enjoyed certain types of posts in the past, the algorithm will be more likely to select items to show you that are similar to that in the future. So your past interests that you've maybe demonstrated even a fleeting interest in will appear more and more in your feed. And then the other is timeliness. So posts that are more recent are more likely to be pushed to the top of people's feeds. That can be frequency of use. So the best and most popular posts since the last time you opened your app. Session time also influences this. So if you spend more than 45 minutes, for instance, scrolling through Instagram, they will show you like more underperforming posts, as opposed to someone who only spends 5 minutes on Instagram, like me. So apparently I only see the greatest hits. And then also the following count. So a person who follows thousands of accounts won't see every post from the people they follow. They'll only see like a selected number of posts. Let's talk about some considerations, right? There is a lot of confusion and mystery around newsfeed algorithms. In part, this is because a lot of content online and a lot of articles describing newsfeed algorithms don't really tell us how they work. They might just use adjectives describing the type of content that is privileged, such as of interest or timely, right? Very much in a way what I did with the Instagram post. So these adjectives often mean very little to us, and they don't really demystify what a newsfeed algorithm is and what it does. And we can assume like this happens for two reasons. We can guess. One might be that people don't actually know the basics of how an algorithm works, right? So they just guess. But the other, or they guess, or they just kind of skate over those like background details. But another one that we mentioned earlier in this lecture is that newsfeed algorithms are proprietary. So they are, they belong to the company, so they're secret to the company. Social media companies do not release their algorithms. They have no incentive and they have no reason to do so, and they're not required to do so. These are companies, and algorithms are proprietary data. So what we know about newsfeed algorithms is often patched together through what companies release to us and what we can find on our own. A couple of questions, right? A couple of questions. So before, with traditional media, professional editors, so editors of newspapers or editors of magazines, they would, or producers of TV, like news shows. Still to this day, this happens, but more so in the past, it was more consumed. They would choose what was or was not considered newsworthy. They decided, in a way, what content the public saw. Despite claims that today it's users deciding what we are seeing, it's really computer programmers and engineers and corporate teams who are creating the algorithms that drive our news feeds that are deciding what we see. And so what does this mean? Do we think it's better? Do we think it's worse? Do we think as users we have enough influence? Do we think as users we sufficiently understand how these work? Do we think it's better to have trained media professionals such as editors and journalists pick what's newsworthy? Or do we like that these newsfeed algorithms sort what they perceived, or what programmers have designed them to like perceive to be as our interests? By focusing on showing us what they think is interesting to us and what already aligns with our beliefs so that we will engage with it, what do these social media algorithms do to us? What do they do to our beliefs? What do they do to our worldviews? What does this do to us in making us think that the world is similar to our own beliefs? So is it in our best interest to be shown content that only aligns with our interests? I'm just going to briefly touch upon AI and journalism because for considerations of time, we won't go too deep into it today. But AI and journalism in some ways is not so far off from the newsfeed algorithm in the sense that the media often uses content personalization to sort of guide the reader towards content that is perceived to be of more interest, with the goal of keeping the reader on the news site longer and getting them more engaged with the writing and content. Because as a result, this drives more eyes to advertisers. There's also some other kind of interesting ways that AI systems are being used. So Forbes has an AI-powered content management system called Birdie that suggests content and titles. Washington Post has Heliograph that can generate articles from quantitative data. Bloomberg uses Cyborg for content creation and management. And other AI systems are being used or tested by The Guardian, Associated Press, and Reuters. Okay. There's so much we can talk about, but we're getting to the end of our lecture. Today, we reviewed how artificial intelligence influences communication in media, primarily social media, and primarily social media news feeds. The basics of AI and social media news feeds are applicable in many other areas of the media, as we saw in journalism too. And remember, as you consume your media, keep an eye out, look around, think of the implications, and always question. Always look for the why. Why am I seeing this? Could it be different? Why am I being pushed to engage more? Is it good for me to be pushed to engage more? Is it good for society? Could it be different? And could it be better? And what will the future look like if these algorithms continue to control our news feeds in this way? Do we care? Do we not care? All right. Thank you, everyone. Next time, we will talk about artificial intelligence and organizational communication.